Welcome back. Biohacking has become increasingly popular and is constantly evolving since the start in Silicon Valley over a decade ago. It can relate to a various number of upgrades made to the body and brain, whether it's through fasting intermittently, which has become a fad lately, or like Josiah Zahner, a former NASA employee who injects himself with DNA using gene editing technology CRISPR, or just people who have chips implanted into their hands. Well, these are all forms of biohacking. There's a range of biohackers around the world, from actual scientists with PhDs, others who have gone to medical school, and some of those who are simply amateurs, even tattoo artists. Although it's been quickly growing globally, it appears Russia is catching on to the global movement, with a growing number of Russians interested in upgrading their bodies using the technology. And we want to have a conversation about this. So for more on this, we're going to bring in Boom Bust correspondent Sarah Montez de Oca and Boom Bust co-host and investigative journalist Ben Swan. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Now, of course, Sarah, I want to start with you today because you are the one who actually has been doing the research on this story. So what is going on in Russia and how is it picking up there?
Well, Russia has been the most recent country to pick up with looking. It looks like over 1,000 Russians have been chipped as of late. Now, it goes back to how chips are being used around the world, right? So it's to start cars, to turn on smartphones, computers and printers, monitoring body temperatures, and store medical information or business cards like we're seeing in Sweden, where you have the chip inserted into your hand and you're able to scan, cash out, with kind of moving toward a cashless society. And even some professional magicians who are now using them to enhance some of their tricks. But Russia is now catching on, kind of trying to really concentrate on how to stop the process of aging. They're looking at how to interfere with the genetic aging process with these chips by monitoring a lot doing heavy exercises, and a lot of them even taking a lot of vitamins and putting things into their body where they're trying to prevent it. Now, so far, there is no actual effect to this, and they don't have a system for it, but that's exactly kind of what they're looking for, where they want longevity.
Now, this is a great piece of technology, but when I was discussing this with my friends in Silicon Valley, in the Baltic region and everything, I was actually concerned about the security and privacy aspect of it. And so I was like, aren't you scared about this? Is a huge invasion of privacy, don't you think? The response to me was, what can they collect that isn't collected already in your phone that you carry everywhere? Your location, what your likes, dislikes, preferences, your shopping habits, everything is already collected basically on your mobile phone. So, Ben, what can you tell us about this from a privacy and security aspect?
Well, I think what it really comes down to is who controls the actual chip, right? So this is part of the debate that's going on right now in terms of biohacking, and that's a very broad umbrella of discussion here. But in terms of people using it the way Sarah was describing right now, you know, you have a chip in your hand, you use it to swipe as access to your apartment, you use it for your gym membership, you might use it as payment method, because you can put your Bitcoin on there, right? If that's ultimately what the idea is, then you know, the way that they're using it in Sweden, Christy, you and I have actually talked to the guy out there who's created a lot of this. The way they're using it there is that the user is actually the root of this and has complete control over what information is there and how it's shared. The problem is that when we talk about governments and surveillance, governments don't want you to be the root of anything. They want to have control and access. Employers want to have control and access, and they want to use biohacking as a way of tracking and monitoring. So it comes down to kind of a fundamental debate about who is going to be the one in control of those chips when they're implanted in somebody's hand or in somebody's body. And that's what I think the debate is right now. And governments are always going to want to gain control, and big tech is going to want to do that. And that's the other important point here. You know, when we talk about governments, as you guys know, Russia, China, there's always this talk about kind of these overlords in government that want to control privacy and security. In the United States, it's less the government and it's more big tech on behalf of the government and in cooperation with the government. So that's where I think the kind of the fight is right now.
It is, but in the article, the Russian who actually did chip himself, he used a subway metro chip to begin with, and then he hacked it to actually record his bank information so he can access his bank account, as you previously mentioned. And it sounded great and all, and he was able to do that until the bank actually shut the access down. So it looks like, as you said, the government actually weren't too happy when he tried to take control for himself in that respect.
And these chips really range from, I think, a number of things from in terms of money and cost. Like you have some that cost thousands of dollars, like these new ones in Russia that are they're monitoring these people's bodies for about $2,000 a month. I think if you want it more like maybe weekly, it's about $5,000 or something to that extent. But then there are the other chip makers who are amateurs who are buying these chips from Taiwan for $5. So I think it comes from a range of things, and some people who then have the expertise versus those who have no idea what they're doing and testing it.
And right, and as Ben was actually talking about, we had Johan Osterland from Biohacks out of, I believe, Denmark is where he was from, and he kind of talked about this exact situation, and he kind of made those same points, but his were more less hackable in that situation, because what they actually were was mostly like the way you would use almost a key card. Nothing could be changed on it. It just had a number, and then that number correlated to something else. So when you swiped it, say, to get in the door, there wasn't anything you could change, like your personal banking or information like that. Now, I wanted to hit on to another point, and we can bring Ben back into this as well, is that, you know, we're talking about life longevity as part of the biohacks discussion. Now, number one, I think that hack is sometimes a little bit misappropriately used, because what we're really talking about is dieting. But Ben, what do you make of that type of access where they're trying to extend their life with all sorts of things that are actually outside of the technological realm?
Well, and that's the other part. We said there's a big umbrella here. So very quickly, that's the other part of this discussion, is this transhumanist discussion, where you ultimately want to use chips technology to ultimately extend somebody's life, to give them greater abilities in terms of eyesight, in terms of brain power, in terms of their ability to run and jump. All those things could be essentially affected by the way that we act as humans as we go through this process of being hacked over time.
Right.
But that is the present in some ways, and it's also the future.
When I think of that whole idea of treating your body like a computer, almost like engineering it to these like softwares, it's pretty interesting.
Absolutely, and there's a lot to discuss here. RT correspondent Sarah Montes de Oca, investigative journalist and co-host of Boom Bust, Ben Swan, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.